it's all filters, and find someone that's in the management consulting industry. So by going to my network and searching, I can actually hone in on people, but those are people you already know. So those are not as important as the people you don't know. John.
Thanks for having me this morning, Suzanne.
Yeah.
I'm driving, that's why I'm on mute. Is there a filter for country? Because I just feel like my LinkedIn is out of control. So many third-party and overseas agencies have tried to connect with me because I'm a marketing guy. Is there a filter for country so that I might be able to clean up my list?
Yeah, so under the filters, you can filter by country or region. So you could say, I only want people in the United States, or if you're looking to expand your network globally, you could say, I only want people excluding the United States or in Asia or whatever. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody should see that on their screen. Okay, any other questions on filters? Okay, so as we just said, our network is comprised of our first connections, people we're already connected to. But if I go back to this chart, the second sphere of influence is the people who my first connections are connected to. So these are the people I don't know. I don't have any clue who they are, but they are connected to my first connections. Did I lose everybody there, or did that make sense? Hopefully that made sense.
Can you say that one more time?
Yep. So if you, and I know this graph is hard to see. If you look at the green bubble, that's your first sphere. That's the people you're currently connected to. The second sphere is friends of the people in the first sphere. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So let me show you why that's so important. So I have 2,700 people in my network, but if I clear my search here and I search for people in all areas, but I search by second, not first, I have 650,000 potential connections who are already connected to my first connection. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Okay, here's why that's important. Let's say that I want to reach out to financial planners. I go to my search and I click on people, I click on second, and then I go to the filters button and I go down here and click on financial services. What that brings up is anyone in financial services who is already connected to somebody I know. Does anybody know why that's important? Oh, stumped you guys already. This is easy. Woo! Okay, here's why it's important, guys. When I reach out to connect with Lynn Dipple, in this case, she is connected to 45 other people I know. Now in sales, I call that safety in numbers. For LinkedIn, I call that gold, because when I reach out to connect with Lynn, I'm going to say something like, hi Lynn, it looks like we have a lot of connections in common. Let's connect to explore synergies. I send that invitation. I don't know Lynn. I don't know anything about Lynn, but I just gave myself credibility with Lynn, because when she looks at our shared connections, because most people do that before they accept an invite, she's going to go, holy moly, this girl knows 45 of the same people I do. I'm going to connect with her. So my chances of connecting with a complete stranger just went from 5% to 5,000%. Before I move on, questions on that, because if there's nothing else you take away today, that's going to be the most important element.
Huge.
Does everybody understand that concept? Questions on that? Okay. So when we are looking back at this sphere of influence, I could literally farm on LinkedIn to create new connections, which is the key, right? Because I have a sphere of influence and I want to nurture and work my immediate sphere of influence. But it's so much more advantageous to expand my sphere of influence so that I have not just twice, not just three, but an exponential number of connections that can see my news feed, that can see my articles, that can see my posts. That's so much more beneficial to me than just pushing my information out constantly to the people who already know me.
So you're not, I mean, you're not reaching out to connect to all these people like personally, you just want them to see your posts and your blogs and your information.
So the goal is both. So if I reach out and connect with Lynn Dipple in this example, I don't know her at all, but I know that she and I know a lot of the same people, 47 of the same people. So not only do I now get to add her to my first contacts, my sphere of influence in that first circle, in which case she's going to see all of my information. But I also may, since I identified financial manager, I may have a strategic relationship with financial managers. And so now she's a bonus because I added her to my sphere of influence in addition to her seeing my feeds. And now, just like she was used to be in that second sphere, now that she's in my first sphere, I can connect with everybody in her sphere. Do you see how exponential that reach is? Does everybody get that? Because this is a huge, huge, huge thing that people miss on LinkedIn. So when I connect with Lynn, I'm adding her to this first green bubble, sphere of influence. So she's gone from this blue bubble to the green bubble. And now everybody that Lynn knows is now available to me for my second sphere of influence.
Yeah, I definitely see it. It reminds me of that old Suave commercial.
And so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's so huge because the mistake most people make on LinkedIn is they go, oh, well, I pretty much connected with everybody I know. And I connected with all my high school buddies and all my past employees and all, you know, that's great. But the key of really working LinkedIn is expanding your sphere of influence. And the only way to do that is by pulling people from that second circle into the first circle so that you can use all of their connections as the second circle. So let's, again, going back to Lynn on our screen here, I click on Lynn. Lynn has 500 plus connections. So I just added a minimum of 500 potential people to my network because of connecting with Lynn. And I will not connect with Lynn unless I have something where she can relate to me. And the best way that she can relate to me is that we know 45 other people. So I've already got credibility. Does everybody like grasp that concept? Does anybody have questions? Okay, so the second big thing is that you're searching for people, you're searching for that second, up here at the top, that second sphere of influence. And then when you find those people, you are then reaching out and connecting with a specific message. Hey, it looks like we know a lot of the same people. It looks like we both worked at Morgan Stanley. It looks like we're running in the same circles. Whatever phrasing you want to use, that will make your connections so much more valuable because you will have established instant credibility with those people. Okay? This makes job hunting easier. This makes prospecting easier. It's just easier, easier, easier. Once you are connected with people, so I'll go back to my network. Once you are connected with people, now I have an opportunity to touch them in a different way. So instead of just throwing information up on LinkedIn and hoping somebody sees it and clicks on it, I can actually message all of my first connections. So I can message this person, and it's almost like an instant message, and it's got a much higher ratio of not only being seen, but being engaged with. So when I reach out and touch somebody and make them my first connection, the game is not over. That's the first step in this whole process. It's connecting with people, and then it's trying to engage them. So the messaging box on LinkedIn is really effective for this, but you got to have something important to say. So when I reach out to folks on LinkedIn, I may have an article that I just posted, and I might send them a message that says, hey, I saw that you're the director of operations at Baltimore Bicycle Tours. And here's an article that I just wrote on tourism or whatever. In other words, you're using their profile along with information you have that's of value, and through the messaging platform, you're sending that to them. So here's what it looks like. Let me find another message that I wrote not too long ago. Here's one. This one came in to me. She had connected with me on LinkedIn. This is a great example of how you can effectively use the messaging feature on LinkedIn to create more value and create more engagement with your connections. So she messaged me about this video that she posted, and she wants to get my opinion. Now I can totally ignore her, but most people will at least respond. They might say, oh, this is great, congratulations. They might say, I'm not in this industry anymore, thank you very much. But whatever it is, you're connecting with them and moving them further down in your sales funnel, or as I call it, your SOI funnel, your sphere of influence. So the more times you touch or connect or talk to someone, you are moving them further down in your funnel to determine whether or not they are a viable prospect for you or a viable strategic partner for you. Much of the building that I do on LinkedIn is not so much, hey, can you buy something from me? It's more about, here's what I do. Do you or someone you know need these services? And most of the time, what I get from people is either, yes, I need those services, or they'll say, you know, I don't need anything right now, but I have a client or I have a colleague or whatever who does need that service. That is working that sphere of influence, because you're not focusing efforts on just one person. You're trying to maximize all the people that they are connected to. I'll shut up for a minute and see if you guys have questions about that. I have a question from Steve who says, I'm here at Operations My Way Mobile Storage. What industry would you suggest? I don't have industries off the top of my head, but I would probably say that warehousing would be your best option, because when people are you have transportation, trucking, railroad, but in the mobile storage business, I don't know that people are looking so much for transportation as they might be for warehousing. So if those are your only two options, I'd probably suggest warehousing. So hopefully that answers that question. Any other questions that you guys want to put in the chat button or even speak up about? Oh, quiet group today. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our connections. So once we've learned how to expand that SOI, and we know that we have the ability to message folks directly through the instant messaging feature in LinkedIn, which again, everybody gets emails, people are connecting here and there, but the messaging feature is the next way to move them further down in the sales funnel. So outside of those options, the next thing is posting. Here is where it gets tricky. If I post an article right now at 9:58 a.m. on April 2nd, 2020, it's going to show in a news feed. To anyone who is currently or in the same rough time frame looking at their news feed. So when you're posting something in a news feed, you need to understand that it's only hitting a small portion of your audience. So what I recommend to folks is to get involved in groups on LinkedIn. Just like Facebook, LinkedIn has groups. And I recommend sharing content out to those groups. So I'll give you an example. And you can see groups, by the way, here on my screen. You go under work, and then you go under groups. So you're going to search for groups that have your target audience. One mistake that I see made a lot, and I'll just use realtors as an example.
Battery life.
A realtor will search for real estate groups. Anybody know what's wrong with that philosophy?
You want to get outside your central sphere.
You got it. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll search for real estate. Well, if I'm a realtor, I don't need to market myself to other realtors. So as a matter of fact, you don't want to market to other realtors because you don't really want them copying what you're doing. So look instead for your target audience. Now, again, just to take realtors as an example, I might search for business owners because I know they have income, I know that they're successful, and I know that they're probably buying middle range homes. I may search for CEOs. I may search for people in specific industries. So definitely make sure that when you're searching for groups, you think about your target audience, not the industry you're in. It's a really common mistake. So for example, I belong to Baltimore Business Journal. That has a ton of professionals in it, and a lot of what I post gets shared there. So what I do with that is I will take a post and share it into this group, just like the one you see that I posted in here. By sharing it into the group, now instead of it just appearing on the news feed of all of my connections, now it's appearing on the news feed of everybody that's in this group. So I've just done a leapfrog to that SOI thing. I'm going to stop right there because sometimes I lose people on this one too. Does anybody have questions on that? That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I encourage you to get involved or to participate in groups. Here's the thing about groups on LinkedIn. They're not quite as effective as groups on Facebook, but I think they're definitely still worth the time that it takes to share a post. I would not share it in every single group you belong to. That's called blasting. Nobody likes that. Make sure that you're sharing it into a group that you're actually engaged with. So what I mean by that is if I'm involved in the Smart Women Professionals group, I want to be commenting, liking, and engaged in that group before I just share information into the group, so that others, particularly the moderators, don't see me as just trying to blast my own stuff. They see that I'm actually engaged with the community. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Suzanne, can you go back to how you find that the group thing? I was taking some notes. And not
Sure. Over here in the top right corner, you see these 9 dots. It says work. You click on that, and it'll bring up this side menu, and you just click on groups.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
And yeah, then it'll bring groups in for you. The other way that you can search for groups, so if I want to search for groups that involve CEOs, is I go up here to the search bar, I type in CEO, it's going to bring up all sorts of options, and what I want to see is groups. So I click on this more button, I click groups, and now it shows me all the groups that have CEO somewhere in their tag or their description. Now, keep in mind, if you're not a CEO, you may not get into those groups. So you're going to have to be very strategic about which groups you get involved with and how you ask to be part of that group. You want to be authentic. You want to be genuine, but at the same time, you don't want to ask. Well, you could ask. I don't know if you'll get in, but you want to make sure that you're getting involved with groups that are appropriate for you as well. Okay, so that's about groups. Again, sharing content into groups multiplies the eyeballs that will see that content. Okay, the next thing is when you're on your homepage of LinkedIn and you have a box up here that says start a post, write an article. Two things about LinkedIn. LinkedIn wants people to stay on LinkedIn. So if you go to start a post and you post something in here and then you insert a link that takes someone off the platform of LinkedIn, for example, over to Facebook, over to Instagram, to your website. And I know this is counterintuitive for a lot of folks. If you post a link that takes people off of the LinkedIn platform, that news feed will not be shown as often. So let me just say that again. Let's say I have a blog post and I put it in here and I put in the link and I click post and that blog post goes straight out to my website. That particular post will not be shown as often to the audience on LinkedIn because LinkedIn wants to keep people on their platform, not move people off their platform. So how do we get around that? Anybody know? Okay, here's a tip for you. So I create blogs. Obviously, I want to share that blog content on LinkedIn. What I generally will do is a two-step process. I create the blog on my website. Then I let that blog sit on my website for a day or two before I basically repost the same virtual content on LinkedIn. Now, there's several reasons why this is important. Number one, there's something called duplicate content. Without getting too far into the weeds, I need to show Google that I am the owner of the content. That's why I post it on my website first. But because of the way LinkedIn shares information, I need to also post it as an article on LinkedIn, referencing in the article my website as the originator of the content. And then I've complied with everybody's rules, made everybody happy, and still been able to share the content with the most eyeballs. Did I lose everybody, or do you guys get that?
So how do you reference your website as the originator of the content? Can you show us an example?
Yeah, let's see. Let me pull up. Hold on. Okay. In this article, this is roughly the same content that I had posted in a blog. But a few days after the blog, I came into LinkedIn and posted the same information here. Now, Google would consider that duplicate content, except for the fact that if I reference the website, which I have right here, Google knows that's the source, or in their terms, canonical, I think it's the word, resource for the article. So by doing it that way, I've met Google's requirements, I've met LinkedIn's requirements, and I've gotten the most eyeballs on my article.
Can you show that again? Show where you referenced it?
Right down here at the bottom.
Okay.
So it's important that since it's technically considered duplicate content, because you're basically repurposing the blog you already wrote, you want to make sure that Google knows I'm not taking credit for this content. This content's coming from another site, and you're referencing that site. And there is a term called canonical. If you have to do that on a website, you have to do it a little bit differently on a website because Google looks at those different. But on LinkedIn, it's very effective because now I can reference the blog on my original site. I can post the content on LinkedIn. And when I post this article on LinkedIn, LinkedIn goes, oh, we like this because this is an article on our website. It's an article on our platform. She's not taking people off the platform except to reference the source. So we're okay with this. And then they'll show this more often than they would if I had just posted a link to the blog on my website.
Okay. So I know this is kind of an individual question, but like what my website people are doing, all they're doing is just reposting my blog on my LinkedIn as opposed to doing this.
Right.
Okay.
So, and that, Tara, is what 90% of the folks out there do. They just go, here's a link to the blog, boom. And that's fine. It's not that it won't get you visibility or traffic, but if you understand how the platforms work and you just take another step further, you can actually get more eyeballs on your content by doing it this way than just simply posting a link.
So I think I now understand. So this is what you were talking about in our last couple of meetings, right?
Yep.
Because I didn't really understand what you were talking about, but this is basically what you're talking about with the social media portion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The other thing is, and just kind of along that note, since that's fresh in your mind, Tara, and I think everybody else will probably benefit from it too, is when you're posting on LinkedIn, let's use Erin since she popped up here. So when you're posting a quote or an image, and the image has lots of words, you should still have a comment at the top. What most people do is they just post the image and they go, well, that speaks for itself. I don't need to say anything. But if you don't say anything, LinkedIn, Facebook, all these different platforms, a lot of times will push down the visibility of that image. Now, Instagram's totally different because it's an image-driven platform. But in platforms where you're able to post a comment at the top, you should post something. It should say, I love this quote. Or it should say, couldn't we use more of this today? It should say something, because otherwise it just looks like you set this up on Hootsuite and you just push down an image to 5 platforms. So from the platform's perspective, they consider this less engaging. From a user perspective, it's less engaging, right? Because I don't know if Erin, and this is nothing against Erin, I love Erin to death, but I don't know if the user posted this. I don't know what they think about it. I would much prefer to see some sort of comment associated with the imagery. So telling me how this person feels about and why they're posting it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it makes it less, more personal, less anesthetic.
yes. And it also provides people insight into what you're thinking. So if you look at all these posts, Kate's a personal branding expert. She's not just going to post an image or a video. She's always going to have some sort of introductory content that tells why she's posting it, why this is important to her, why it's important to you. Every single person that's in the business, so to speak, is always going to post something up here, not just the imagery. So even if it's a great quote that you love and it speaks for itself, you should still have some sort of introductory comment to tell people why this is important. It'll also create much more engagement. If you just if I just post an image or a quote, people will click like and move on. If I post an image or a quote with like, this is my favorite quote, what's yours? Then I'm much more likely to get engagement on that post than I am if I don't have any comments.
So let me ask you this question. So let's say, like in my case, if my website people are posting my blogs on social media, would you advise that I go back in and like do what you said, kind of make a different post that's not just a link to a blog, or is that too duplicative?
So here's the thing, and there's a fine line, and I know John's on this call. I was going to say, if you ask 10 marketers, you're going to get 10 different questions. 10 different answers. But here's my answer to that. If I post something on LinkedIn today or this week, I have no problem going back in, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks time and reposting that content again. Because remember, only a fraction of the people have seen that post based on when it was posted, based on when it appeared in their news feed. So you absolutely can reshare content or repost content as long as you have enough time in between the one you posted and the one you're posting now. So you don't want to, I don't want to post the same content 3 times in 1 week. I want to post a post this week, and then maybe in 3 weeks, I'm going to post it again, maybe with a different introduction.
Gotcha. So maybe take the information from the blog, like you said, and then make it like an actual post with the reference to the original website where the blog is.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
And the most important thing is that all of your original content, even though LinkedIn has this wonderful write an article platform, okay, like up here in the post section, you see start a post or write an article. They have this article platform that is designed to be their blogging platform. Well, that's great, but use that second. So you should be blogging on your own website first.
Right.
Let it sit there. Let Google pick it up. Let Google send their robots in and do all the keyword stuff. Let you be the originator of the content, and then take the content and push it over here to their blog platform.
Gotcha.
John's saying agreed.
Yep.
The first, John's also says, the first post tell you what works, repost the ones that get you the most results. Totally.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Good
Yep.
point.
Okay, we are rounding up. We're 45 minutes in. So the next 15 minutes, I'm going to leave, first of all, for discussion Q&A, because we have hit the highlights and the most common mistakes that people make on LinkedIn. So get your questions and thoughts ready. The other thing I'm just going to touch on real quick is that, again, there are 2 areas for posting on LinkedIn. The one is just a regular post. This is where you just go in and say whatever you're going to say. And right here where it says Suzanne and then it says anyone, right here is where you can post to specific groups. So let me show you that again. I go in, I've got a post to make here. On this anyone button, I can post to groups. And within those groups, I could say, okay, I'm going to post this to Global Business Journal. And then I'm going to add my picture and I'm going to post. So that's a simple post. You can do that on a news feed. That would be the anyone, or you can do it to groups, which is the one that I like to do. You can also connect your Twitter and do it to Twitter. So you've got a couple of different ways to post. The second way, which I think is very effective, positions you as an expert, is to write an article. Again, this is LinkedIn's version of blogging. So you're going to post a photo, you're going to post the headline, then you're going to post the content. 90% of the time, this is going to be similar or repurposed content from your own blog. But there are instances where maybe something is quick, instantaneous. For me, something recently was relevant to the COVID crisis, and I just posted it real quick here. You don't always have to have a complete duplicate of your blog on your website. Sometimes content might be specific for LinkedIn and you post it real quick and you just get it out there. But those are the 2 ways that you can post, and I would strongly encourage that you do both, because the other way that articles come in really handy is when people are researching you. If they are thinking about doing business with you, articles are huge. Here's why. Here's my profile. If I go down, I've got activity right here. So I can see what kind of activity someone has done in their profile. For example, maybe I want to see, if I'm looking at myself, I want to see all the articles that Suzanne has posted. So I go to articles. Oh, selling in tough times, posting a professional webinar. I get a real quick feel for the areas of expertise that this person has through articles. that make sense? So I'll show you on someone else. This is a friend of mine. I go to search Kate. I'm trying to figure out if she really knows what she's doing. I look at her profile. She's got 500 plus connections. So she's obviously done some homework as far as connecting with people. We have 307 mutual connections. Now, Kate was one of my mentees, so we're connected to a ton of the same people. But obviously, this would be a really strong connection because we know a lot of the same people. Kate has been featured. She has a ton of activity. She has 11,713 followers. So when I post something that Kate likes or shares, I have just expanded my audience by 11,713 people. See how powerful that is? If I look at her activity, I can see all activity includes articles, posts, everything. But if I look at articles, I can see the things that she's writing about so that I get a feel for where she's the expert. Does that make sense? So if you're not writing articles on LinkedIn, you're missing a key way for your target audience to determine really quickly what you're the expert in. And I can tell you that folks will call me and they'll say, yeah, I read your article on LinkedIn. So it definitely is used and effective in helping to convert prospects into clients. So we got 10 minutes left. I'm going to open it up and see what other questions you guys have. If we've covered them, great. If we haven't covered them, I'll try to answer them, but let me open it up and you guys shoot and let me know what's on your mind.
Suzanne, this is John Maggio. I just wanted to say thank you. I actually learned a lot today from the presentation. I've already gone and removed all of my Indian connections. And I've already, that was a huge SEO tip. I always was scared to just almost straight up copy and paste content into LinkedIn thinking that it was a big no-no. But with you doing that research, that was huge. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And like I said, John, and you know this, some marketers will tell you don't do that. Totally rewrite the blog. But I have a fair amount of colleagues in the industry, and one of them is an influencer on LinkedIn, and that was actually a tip that she gave me a while back. And she said that she was privy to some information that said, as long as you reference it back to the original website on LinkedIn, and it was posted there first, that is important, that it's still best practice. So thanks.
Yeah, that was great, Suzanne. I learned a lot. I mean, obviously I'm not that great at social media, but I'm getting better. And yeah, I learned a lot because I didn't really know how LinkedIn worked at all.
Awesome.
Very
And-
informative. Thanks, Suzanne.
Absolutely. And Tara, I'm going to use you as an example. You know, if I'm looking for an estate planning attorney, and I look on LinkedIn, and Tara's got articles, and she's got tons of connections on her profile, and we didn't cover this, but I'm going to show my profile as well. You should be using the recommendations feature on your profile as well. Asking people to recommend you. So for me, actually, Tara's one of my recommendations. I've got 21 recommendations from past clients or people that I've worked with. This is huge because people, just like your website, people will go to your LinkedIn profile to validate and determine if you're credible. So Tara, is you as an example, if I'm thinking about hiring an attorney, I don't want to know if they've helped Joe Schmo. I want to know if they've helped somebody in the professional environment who owns a business, who's in my shoes, right?
Right.
So this is where LinkedIn provides a much higher level of credibility and typically a much higher level of clientele. Who else? What other questions do we have? We answered them all that quick? All right, I guess we did. Well, that's all I got. I wanted to make sure we were finished up within the hour, so we got 6 minutes left. If you have questions, by all means, contact me directly. Best way to reach me is through my website at ideas360llc.com. And like I said, I do have quite a few blogs out there on this and similar topics. And hopefully that helped you today. Amidst the crisis that we're in, stay safe, stay in your house, and have a good week. And hopefully we'll all be out and about soon. So take care. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm updating my headline right now.
Okay. Take care, John.